So a couple of days ago, I launched an Indiegogo campaign to support my novel, Wilshire Boulevard. And the reception has been incredible. I mean, I cannot thank the people who've supported me enough. I mean, it's just been extraordinary. You know, I'm well on my way to my goal, and I think it's going to be a successful campaign. So thank you, one and all. But a lot of people have said, well, you know, what the hell is Wilshire Boulevard about? You know, I mean, it's got like this title that is evocative of zilch, right? What's the story? Tell us. I mean, you're supposed to be a storyteller. This is a novel. It's supposed to be an entertainment. So tell us what the entertainment is about. Fair enough. Wilshire Boulevard is about the kidnapping of a young woman. It happens in the first chapter. And she's kidnapped by these people who are not too clever, although they are all very educated. I mean, they've all got master's degrees, and they've all got motivation to kidnap this young woman. The motivation is money, because this young woman is the daughter of a very, very wealthy man. And she herself has a trust fund. And so, like, money is coming out of their ears. And whereas the kidnappers are flat broke, and they all have student debt or health problems of people that they love. And so they need the money. They need it rather desperately. And so they've got the brains and the will to carry out this kidnapping. And they think it's going to go fine, but of course it doesn't. Now see, I'm a thriller writer. That's how I started my career as a novelist, right? Writing thrillers. And so the novel initially, it just plays with the tropes of thrillers, of kidnapping stories, because there have been thousands of kidnapping stories, of course, right? Ever since Patty Hearst got snatched by the Symbionese Liberation Army, you know, yeah, the kidnapping story of the rich young girl is a trope. And so at first, this novel seems to be just following the tropes, right? It just seems to be, you know, just another kidnapping thriller kind of thing, right? But then the novel takes a few turns here and there, and all of a sudden it's going in a completely different direction. And all of a sudden you thought that you were reading a very predictable thriller, and all of a sudden you have no idea where the thriller is going. Okay? And so that's the fun of it. It's a book that's sophisticated. It's a book that knows the tropes and plays with them and takes the reader in a direction that he's never been to before. Now, I don't want to give any more away, because if I give it away, you know, then I spoil the surprise, right? And that's no fun. I mean, half the fun of reading a surprising book is to get that splash of water on your face of like, holy shit, that's happening? That's what's been going on? No way! That's the fun of a thriller, to be surprised. I remember the first time I watched The Usual Suspects, and I watched it, and it came to the false ending, where, you know, everybody said that the Gabriel Byrne character was Kaiser Sose. That was just very, you know, it just was not fulfilling. And I thought, man, what a lousy movie. Until the last scene, where you see Verbal Kint walking down the sidewalk, and his limp starts to straighten out, and you realize he was Kaiser Sose, right? Right. That kind of an ending. Oh, that is so satisfying. And that's the kind of ending that Wilshire Boulevard has. And I'm very proud of the ending, because it makes it worthwhile. It makes it memorable. Because that's the thing with so many thrillers, you know, they have great beginnings, they have great middles, and they sort of like peter out at the end. Not Wilshire Boulevard. It delivers on the ending. Thank God. Now, I've pitched you a little bit of what Wilshire Boulevard is about. Let me read you some of it, so maybe you'll get a sense of how it feels. Prologue. The music was fusion jazz rock, and the band playing it, a quintet of musicians in their early 30s, knew what they were doing, even as they were improvising second to second, note to note. The groove, bass and drum, dark and frisky, was the bed for both the electric organ, which floated over it like water across pebbles, and for the electric guitar, which darted in and out of the syncopated crevices left by the rhythm section. Above it all, a lone bright trumpet soared and plummeted and rose again, fragile and invincible, in the small space of the half-empty club. Less than half-empty. Jazz isn't popular anymore. Catherine Severide watched the musicians and the crowd in the dark club, a crowd that was slightly seedy, slightly older, slightly sad, People who've watched their dreams fade till they look like the ancient fake flowers by the door. Some of the crowd watched the musicians, some others smoked and talked, but all of them had a drink in easy reach, and not their first drink of the night, let alone their last. At a glance, Catherine shared nothing with this shabby crowd. She was all of 22 for one thing, as fresh and bright as just crushed ice. For another, she was thin and tall and very pretty, a fresh-faced prettiness, enough to stand out even in a crowd of her peers. Forget about a crowd like the one gathered here in this jazz club on Crenshaw Boulevard. A waitress, black and 40-ish and too hard-working to be overweight, glided up to Catherine's table. She set down a pair of drinks. Catherine's was a Gibson. "Thank you. Ooh, goody," she said as she got her drink. "Lots of pearl onions. You're an angel," she said as she scooped up one of the $10 bills lying like teepees on her table and held it up between her fingers, giving it to the waitress along with a smile. The waitress smiled back. "Thanks, hon," she said as she pocketed the tenner and cruised on her way through the club. Catherine smiled as she raised her glass and drank in the sight. Not of the club, but of the people in the club. All her life she'd been addicted to people watching. Watching them, studying them, figuring them out, savoring them. Other people interested her far more than herself, which was surprising for the narcissistic age she was living in and the woman that she was. Not only born tall and thin and pretty, but born rich and born with brains, and born into all the education and sophistication that money and those brains could acquire. Born a million miles from the slightly sad, slightly rough, slightly defeated crowd hunched over their drinks at this half-empty club. Yet she watched them, closely, studying them even as her other senses took in the bright frisky music, the red glass candle holders at each of the round tables, the black leatherette upholstery of the seats, the red crushed velvet curtains smelling of ancient cigarettes, the dark corners and the smoky air of this dying space in a sad part of Los Angeles. "I'm not really a fan of jazz, but I love the idea of it," she said, without looking away from the people around her. The whole notion of constant, relentless improvisation, that's so... Life's like jazz. The world has a beat, and you play off that beat. You solo, you riff, you harmonize with some people for a little while, jam with some other people after that. But you always want to stay in the groove of the world. You don't ever want to be left behind. That's why you can't make plans. Your big schemes and grand strategies, they never work. The groove of the world changes too fast. What'll happen in a year, in 10 years, tomorrow? She shook her head, then laughed out loud. Fuck tomorrow. Tomorrow's a garden of forking paths, a labyrinth where plans become prisons, concrete boxes underground. And who needs a prison of their own design? Then she turned away from the musicians and leaned forward, her eyes bright and alive with an idea that possessed her as surely as a demon in human skin. All you can do is feel the beat of the world, feel the groove that's happening right here, right now, and play. I can't wait for you to read it.